Welcome to this explainer. Today we are diving straight into Rudolf Steiner's highly complex esoteric philosophy regarding the historical suppression of the human spirit and its ultimate destined evolution. We are going to unpack how ancient mysteries were lost, how humanity was plunged into the deeply materialistic worldview we see everywhere today, and what it actually takes to reclaim our spiritual heritage right now in the modern age.
So, let us jump right in. What if the human spirit was abolished by a historical decree? To truly understand our current spiritual era, we have to look at this incredibly provocative premise from spiritual science. The idea here is that the human spirit was deliberately written out of history over a millennium ago. You see, transitioning into a new spiritual era requires us to consciously dismantle the structures of materialism and dogma that have obscured the spirit for centuries. And the primary barrier to making that return? A historical event that actively abolished the very concept of the spirit.
The abolition of spirit. This massive suppression laid the foundational groundwork for an internal evolution that fundamentally altered the whole trajectory of Western civilization. We are going to trace exactly how one specific theological decision cascaded down through the centuries, ultimately creating the intensely materialistic worldview that dominates our society today.
Steiner suggests an immense, fundamental shift happened right here. The ancient threefold understanding of humanity, which viewed man as consisting of body, soul, and spirit, was completely replaced by a very rigid twofold dogma. For early Christian Gnostics in the ancient mystery schools, this threefold partition was absolutely essential. But as Christianity assumed a more official Roman character, a systematic attempt was made to exclude the spirit entirely. They left humanity with only a body and a soul.
And this was not just some sudden accident. It was a vast work of destruction that spanned multiple centuries. Between the 4th and 6th centuries, a systematic eradication of ancient mystery knowledge began. Incredible temples, along with the deep truths of the sun initiation and the threefold nature of man, were demolished, culminating under Emperor Justinian. Steiner actually calls this historical destruction a second mystery of Golgotha, where the spirit was crucified a second time in history. The final blow came much later, in the year 869 AD at the 8th Ecumenical Council. This council officially decreed that a person possesses only a body and a spiritual soul, effectively outlining the distinct concept of the spirit altogether.
According to this esoteric framework, that specific council induced a profound somnolence, a deep sleep within human consciousness. By severing the concept of the spirit, it led directly to the rigid materialism of the 19th and 20th centuries. It laid the foundation for thinkers who began viewing history purely through material forces, treating the soul as a mere byproduct of bodily processes. We are living in the direct aftermath of this council right now, struggling against dogmatic institutions in an age where the soul itself is quite frankly being threatened with abolition.
Faith versus occult fact. Moving beyond external history and institutional guilt, we find a deep conflict between mere faith and occult fact. Humanity is being challenged to forge a radically new, internal relationship with the spirit. Institutionalized Christianity often relies on dogmatic acceptance and external history, which Steiner suggests has actually hindered or even killed the human soul by withholding true spiritual understanding. The esoteric path, however, asks us to look at spiritual events as concrete realities.
So the absolutely crucial point here is how this philosophy reframes the central event of Christianity. Rather than viewing the resurrection merely as a comforting moral teaching, it is reframed as an occult fact. It is seen as the creation of a spiritual cell, an incorruptible phantom body. Because of the descent into matter, the human physical body was destined to crumble, threatening the very survival of the human ego. The resurrection provided the necessary force for the human I to maintain its distinct consciousness and freedom even after death.
The mission of anger. To reach this profound realization and fully mature the human ego, we have to understand the mission of anger. This involves a highly specific, intensely paradoxical transformation of the soul. It is a journey that requires us to look deeply into the darker, more turbulent emotions we all experience and understand their necessary role as an educator of the ego.
Within what is called the sentient soul, we encounter this vital mission of anger. You see, before the ego is mature enough to form clear, independent, and enlightened thoughts, raw emotions step in as a stand-in. Righteous anger arises as a surrogate for judgment. It serves as a necessary herald of the force that will eventually lead to true self-possession and true independence.
And this creates a truly profound paradox. While righteous anger aggressively asserts the ego,
It also acts as a poison that damps down our ego awareness. By running up against injustice, anger forces the soul completely out of complacency and into a state of selflessness. From that selfless state, it ultimately blossoms into its highest possible form. Steiner teaches that transmuted anger is living love. A person who is incapable of feeling righteous anger against the injustices of the world will deeply struggle to develop real, aglow kindness. These aren't opposites you have to choose between. They are complementary poles in the necessary development of the human spirit. Anger is the raw material that, when processed by the maturing ego, turns into genuine, radiant love.
Freedom requires resistance. This internal evolution was only made possible through a cosmic war in heaven, where Luciferic forces provided the exact resistance humanity needed. Think of pushing a heavy cart. The resistance of that weight is exactly what builds your muscles. The gods of hindrance sacrificed themselves to place obstacles right in the path of human development, allowing us the possibility of error, but simultaneously giving us the sacred capacity to develop independent free will.
The 10th hierarchy and the etheric return. Understanding this intricate balance of resistance, anger, and transmutation points us directly toward humanity's ultimate cosmic destiny. We aren't just passive observers in the universe, going along for the ride.
The ultimate goal of our spiritual return is to become the 10th hierarchy. In the esoteric tradition, humanity is currently in a state of maturation. We are destined to eventually take our place as a completely unique rank in the cosmos, the spirits of absolute freedom, and love, where love is forged entirely out of uncoerced freedom.
To really grasp our destiny, compare humanity to the higher angelic beings. The seraphim, cherubim, and thrones live in the immediate gaze of the Godhead. They are bound to act upon divine command. They cannot err, sure, but they also do not act out of independent freedom. Humanity's unique mission is entirely different. We are meant to bring true freedom into the cosmos, because love is utterly impossible without freedom. We must find the impulse for our actions from the deepest, most central recesses of our own inner being.
As humanity steps into this new hierarchy, the anticipated second coming is understood in a remarkably evolved way. It is not a physical return in a body of flesh. Rather, it is an awakening within the etheric realm. It is an appearance in the etheric body that can only be perceived by those who have developed completely new faculties of the soul.
This etheric return bypasses institutional dogmas entirely. It simply cannot be perceived by reading historical documents or relying on traditional church authority. Instead, it requires individuals to actively and freely resolve to receive this spiritual power. It becomes a personal Damascus experience for the individual ego. Only through a voluntary ascent into higher worlds can we unite with this divine power, ultimately working to transform the entire earth into a cosmos of pure love and freedom.
To participate in this cosmic deed today is to sink these esoteric thought seeds into our own consciousness. We must take these complex concepts, the spiritual cell, the mission of anger, the 10th hierarchy, and plant them deep within our own minds, so they become fruit-bearing life. The power of the Spirit must become an active, creative force within us individually to transform earthly suffering.
As we consciously dismantle the structures of materialism that have obscured our spirit for so many centuries, we are left with a profound challenge. The Apostle Paul had his vision on the road to Damascus, completely bypassing external teachings for a direct, personal experience of the Spirit. We must ask ourselves, how will we individually awaken to this reality? How will you forge your own path to the Spirit in a world that insists only the physical matters? The cosmos of love and freedom awaits your answer.